Learning comes alive at Greenbriar West because we, first of all, have a very diverse population, so we have a lot of different student needs to meet. We have an English as a Second Language Center, we have a Gifted and Talented Center, we have special education classes, and we have regular education classes, K through 6. So all of those together make for a learning population that has many needs, as I've said, and so we try to develop learning opportunities for kids where they can have hands-on experiences as well as integrating the curriculum. A lot of our learning experiences are teacher and student generated, so as an administrator I see myself in the facilitating role to help pull all that together and to draw on the strengths of other people in terms of implementing the curriculum. For instance, my second grade teachers in the process of integrating language arts may have a fairy tale day as they did last fall, which is a culminating activity to all of the reading and writing that the students have done. My sixth grade team of teachers, which includes the regular ed, special ed, and GT Center classes, all work together to develop Middle Ages Day, and this year for the first time was able to incorporate fifth grade into that because of the way the curriculum fell this year in social studies. My music teacher very often helps to coordinate, as she did with the first grade team, some of the thematic units and develop a circus show as a culminating activity. So those things, as well as the turkey run experience that the fourth grade teachers implement, really take the curriculum and develop it in creative hands-on ways while integrating at the same time. And the teachers, as I say, initiate all of this. It draws upon their particular interests and strengths as well. We also have a very strong volunteer program at Greenbriar West. We draw upon the strengths and the interests of our community members. They're not only parents of students at the school, by the way, but very often they are community members who want to volunteer their time in the schools. And these come about both through the Arts in the Schools program, which is sponsored by the Greater Reston Arts Council, which implements a monthly program in every classroom describing the works of a famous painter. And through our computer lab, we use the interests of many of our parent volunteers to help implement technology in our 5th and 6th grade classes. It's really a wonderful experience to have volunteers help with a school for a number of reasons. It's a plus for us. It gives our students the opportunity to have more small group one-on-one individual attention and also to benefit from the expertise of the volunteers. But I think it also does a service to the volunteers. They feel that they understand education more, they appreciate the role of education, the role of teachers, and they really feel good about coming into the schools, learning about the schools, and being able to offer some of their help and expertise with students. My favorite part of being a principal is really being involved with the kids and also seeing teachers, as I say, come to me with ideas, sort of self-generate ideas, be enthusiastic themselves, and see how that translates into learning for kids. Because I think enthusiasm on the part of the teacher is such an important factor as well, because they can deliver that to kids, and kids get the message really quickly that this is something my teacher really enjoys, this really is worth doing, and this is something we all need to get excited about. So I think just being the facilitator probably is the best role I can have.
This was a culmination day of a lot of work in the classroom, and it was just a lot of fun. We kind of brought everything together at the end of a couple weeks of reading a lot of fairy tales, comparing a lot of fairy tales, doing activities in the classroom, making a lot of scenery, doing things in music and in PE, all revolving around the fairy tale unit. And this day was a culmination day, just a fun day to bring it all together and have the kids enjoy it and have a good time.
We're just trying to make learning be more fun and get the kids interested in really reading, and not reading one source, but reading 2 or 3 or 4 sources to expand their knowledge and their enthusiasm.
Once upon a time, there was a
We have reading buddies, and ours are 5th grade reading buddies.
He was poor and lived in a tiny hovel. His family received 1 slice of bread a day.
Well, one night he was talking to his children and he said, "Children, we must get rid of your mother. She is old, gray, and she is no use to us." It took a lot of talk to convince the children, but they finally gave in. All this time, the mother was listening. She ran out the back door and fled away into the woods. Soon she became sleepy and fell asleep. When she awoke, she did not know where she was. She got up and started walking.
Suddenly, the big bad wolf jumped out from behind the tree. He gave her a little red cape to wear. She put it on. Then the wolf vanished out of sight.
The woman started walking again. She came to a straw house and she said, "Little pig,
They're role
little pig,
models,
are you in?"
and if second graders see that children are still interested in the sixth grade in fairy tales, because some children, when you mention fairy tales to second graders, they think that's baby stuff, that's kindergarten or preschool, but when they see that there are different versions, plus that the sixth graders and fifth graders are reading it and writing their own version, then they become very interested in reading and writing. And so it's just for role modeling.
In math, we did estimation. In one of the activities, there was a pumpkin that held a whole bunch of mice, and they had to estimate how many were in there. A lot of times children think they have to be right. And it's okay for them to be wrong. And in estimation, it's all right to make a mistake. You don't have to be right on target. But it gets them to start to visualize how many things are inside of a container. And the more we do it, the better they are at it.
This is from Goldilocks and the Three Bears. One day I got so sleepy that I just had to have a little nap. Who am I and where was I?
Goldilocks in a small bed.
Yes, good. Okay.
These thematic units involve the children in a lot of different ways. In reading, in math, in science, we can get into social studies. So your whole day can revolve around this unit, and you can pull in from your art, your music, your science, and on all the other areas, and the children just seem to have a focus, and it's high interest.
The kids love to see their parents in the schools. Their faces light up when they see it's their mom painting the face and whatever. And then the parents also see all of the things that the teachers are trying to do, and they're more than willing, once they see how hard, well, how much work is going on in the schools, I think they're more willing to come in and help.
Who's that chirping, chirping on my bridge? Said the big bad troll, said the big bad troll, said the big bad, big bad, big bad, big bad troll, big bad troll.
Okay, this is our computer lab, and it has 15 Apple II GS computers. What we're trying to do is introduce the students to the computer as a tool in learning, and that we try and, over the year, give them a little taste of programming, some work with spreadsheets, databases, and of course word processing being the main tool. The third group was doing robotics, which is a combination of programming and some physics we were working with in simple machines. And what they do is they take the Logo programming language and write instructions for the computer to interact with motors and lights and sensors.
The optic sensor is somewhat like an eye. It tells the computer whether it sees light or dark. The touch sensor is somewhat like a finger. It tells the computer whether it feels something.
They generally come to a point where they can't move forward, and what I try to do is point out to them what they've done in the past, get them to look at what they've done to see if there is something that they themselves can see to correct, because that's the best way for them to learn, is to see what it is they've done in the program and then to correct it themselves. If that's not possible, then we'll talk about where, you know, the variations in the program, the start, the middle, the end, where they might do some correction to make it work. And I guess the last thing you would do would be to actually tell them the adjustment to make. My preference is to help them learn to do it themselves. And generally, if you can get through the first 2 steps, they'll see it and they'll correct it. We, as parents, I think, have a responsibility to supplement what the schools do. The schools can only do so much. We're in an environment now where, like in our 6th grade classes, as you see them come in today, we have 30 children in a 6th grade class being placed in a 15-person lab. That's a lot of kids. 30 kids is a lot of children for one teacher to work with in a lab environment. And without that support of the parents, and you don't have to do it like Mike does, 1 complete day a week, but even an hour a week or 3 hours a month or anything like that that helps to supplement your kids' education, I think is just value added for them.
It's a joy to me to see all of a sudden a face light up, or actually every once in a while a student will stand up and say, "I got it." They solved the problem, and to me that's the thing I'm looking for. Try something new. Don't be afraid to try it. And this is a laboratory in which, hey, if it fails, the only thing you did was waste a few electrons. And 9 times out of 10, they'll get it right before the hour's up.
Vasily Kandinsky is known as the father of abstract art. He was the very first artist that started to put paintings together where he didn't use people or landscape or anything that was recognizable in anything that he did. And I'd like to just briefly go through a very quick history of art. Remember now, we looked at the 15th century, we looked at portraits.
The Art in the Schools program is a program sponsored by the Greater Reston Art Center, and it's a program that entitles children to an art appreciation lesson of 1 hour per month. It's solely run by volunteers. There are 25 volunteers here at Greenbriar West who devote 1 hour to 2 hours each month to coming into the classroom and teaching a little bit about art, history, and art appreciation. They will give approximately a half-an-hour lesson on the featured artist or art form for that month, and then they'll follow that lesson with a half-hour art activity. And the lessons are pre-planned by Greater Reston Art Center. Art packages come once a month. They have laminated prints in them and written material about the featured artist for that month.
Now what I want you to do, and this is not going to be easy, but if you could possibly visualize music as a line or a dot or a shape or a zigzag line.
Kandinsky was very interested in music, and he felt that it went hand in hand with art. So today I had the children listen to 4 different types of music, hard rock, rap, classical, and jazz, and had the children get a feeling for those particular rhythms and try to put that down on paper in a kind of line, dot, or zigzag form. And when they heard the different rhythms, they put that on the paper. Some of the musicians sounded a little bit like the Morse code. They followed it with dot and line, dot and line. Some of it was more free-flowing. They gave us a wave motion. Some of it was real jerky and cut and go, stop and go like the rap. And it also was kind of a jagged motion as well. I think a lot of times when parents come in and do things in the classroom or help out on the PTA board or go on field trips, it really does enhance their children's learning experience, and I think the children know that their parents are involved and that they care, and I think children will perform better and they do a better job when they know there are other people behind them supporting them other than just the faculty and the staff.
Hurry, hurry, step right up, folks. Welcome to our really big show. The one, the only, Greenbriar West Circus.
One of the first grade units is about the circus. They read circus stories and do all kinds of poems about the circus. And as kind of a culmination of that, we usually do a circus program, and then the kids to go to the Barnum and Bailey Circus in D.C. This year, because of snow days and because of our spring holidays and the time that the circus was scheduled, it kind of worked reverse. So they got to go to the real circus before they did their circus here. Music is a part of every culture, and it's just natural that when teachers are working on certain things, whether it's a different civilization or a period of history in our country or with fairy tales or something, that music is they want to include music, and and I'm very willing to do things to integrate, whether it's with language arts or whether it's to do with social studies or what have you.
Middle Ages Day was a culmination of a subject or a study that we had done from a period of time ranging from 500 to about 1500. And what we tried to do was to get the children to be involved in a hands-on way. And so we planned various activities with the children to get them involved where they would have active participation. One of the main activities that we were involved in was the concept of bartering, which means that each group of children would organize themselves so that they could plan to prepare some kind of craft item that might be bartered during the Middle Ages period. And the children had to come up with their own ideas, and they had to be authentic to the time period. They were invited to wear period costumes, which they would prepare themselves as well, and then get in groups, choose a theme or sign that would represent their particular craft. And basically what they did was to just visit around to each other's shops and barter with each other to obtain the items that they would like to have, and in turn give up some items that they had as well. So that was the main concept behind the bartering. Another time period was given over to games that would have been traditional during the Middle Ages: backgammon, chess, checkers. We had jousting going on in another class. The children were invited to make their own jousting tubes made with toweling paper tube and a small cup in the shape of a cone that was applied to the end of the tube. And the objective was to try to shoot your tube through a rubber tube which was hanging, it was suspended from the ceiling.
Look at her hips, or whichever way you want to think of it. One is higher or lower than the other. Look at the waistline of her dress and see how that goes at a slant rather than straight across. And look at the buttons on the dress, how they come down the front in a slight angle rather than absolutely hanging straight. Now that was all done that way to tell us she had a curvature of the spine. Now, that was
every child was invited to do a rubbing, and they found that it involved a little more than they had anticipated. Once they chose the particular plate they wanted to rub, just the whole idea of learning how to do a brass rubbing, so they got a really nice finished product. We tried to encourage the children to go beyond just the rubbing and really take a look at the style the plate that they had chosen and what was particular about that style. Whether it be the way the shoes were pointed, whether there was an animal included in the figure, how the arms were held in front of the body, all were indicative of who that person might have been in terms of the level of society of that time. I think from what we can see with how children respond best to a particular study, a particular unit, is by getting active involvement, by having the children do some research on their own. Do some role playing and think about how they would feel if they were a member of the clergy or they were a noble, or how it would feel to be knighted, or how it would feel to be a peasant during this time, and to really role play, to get involved with this in terms of how they would react. What also helped was that we were bringing in various aspects of the curriculum, not just, we were moving outside of social studies and moving into literature. And the children were reading various novels about this time period in history, and that sort of helped them to get involved in a more active way with their particular character.
Colonial Farm in McLean, Virginia offers a colonial camping experience for 3rd or 4th grade students depending on the curriculum level that studies Virginia history. The kids are divided up into work groups of 5 or 6 children per group, and whatever the activities are, if it's a craft activity, they're working independently usually, but if they're working in the kitchen, they have to work together to get the meals prepared.
On the top into about half that size, and then we'll get you some bowls to put them in, okay?
Here's some more bowls.
Okay, good. We'll put the meat in the bowls. Mine don't get in the way.
Hurry, we're getting paid!
You should never be in the bathroom during payday. Hey, Casey, are you here?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where are you, honey? There you go.
Thank you.
Alexis, 2, 3, 4, 5. Becky, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This is the venison, and that's the beef.
I'm gonna have venison. I'm gonna have a little bit of meat.
Now we're going to have to wash the boards.
Okay, why don't you ladies stand back a bit and let these 2 young ladies come out. Remember, all the hay you take, you have to clean up.
I think people think ahead of time. The children often talk about staying up all night and what fun they're going to have during the night, and they're going to sneak in and out into each other's tents. And it just doesn't happen when we get out there. For one thing, they're tired. And for another, we're also busy consciously working at maintaining the environment of the town and doing the work that we have to do, that kind of atmosphere just is not conducive to the kind of foolery that sometimes you can have with a bunch of kids. Okay, what do you think? Okay, a shilling each. Can you handle that, Mayor? All right, I'll leave it up to you. Check this one out. How does it look on the outside? How does it look around the edges? There's some. David, pull your hay in. Really good. Want some cheese, Brianna?
You want lemonade? Okay, Karen, do you have your cup? You'll have to spread it a little bit. I could get you some lemonade if you. Just a tad. See if I like it.
I think it'll be pleasant.
It's open because you opened it.
There's more than enough. Come back for seconds.
Beef?
Whoa, right on top of your cucumber.
What'd you get for it?
I got a shilling.
Me
I
too.
got 2 shillings for
Blow it out. Well
She
done.
worked hard.
We put the stuff over.
Okay, this one stays here because the handle's out of it. They're up again at first light as soon as the sun comes up and things begin to get bright and things start chirping. They're awake. So usually about 5:30, 6 o'clock, the early risers will wander down to the campfire for the next hour, hour and a half. We'll be cooking breakfast and serving children as they come out of the tent. And then they go back and clean up their tent, and we kind of get ourselves organized for the day, where 2 groups will be doing crafts of one kind, 1 group will be in the kitchen, and 1 group will be on fire watch. When these kids have come back from this experience, and someone talks to them about what's it like to live without electricity, they know. They've spent 3 days worrying about what are they going to do when it gets dark and there is no light, and how do you manage that? How do you cook when all you have is a fire pit? What do you do when the fire begins to die down and you've run out of logs? How do you manage those kinds of activities, which are feelings and experiences, you know, colonial people would have had? And of course, when they dress in the costume and then the activities are structured so that the kinds of things they do out there, whether it's a craft activity or working in the kitchen, is an experience that people would have, surely much more than they would ever get out of a book. It's a lot of extra work for teachers and parents. And at the moment, Greenbriar West is the only Fairfax public school that does this program, and that's one of the reasons. It takes a big commitment on the part of teachers and a big commitment from volunteer parents. But at this school, we have never had a problem getting enthusiastic support from parents. We have never gone out there when we didn't feel like we had a lot of other adults who were volunteering their time to come. And once you get out there with the kids, the excitement of being out there and the fun and enjoyment that the kids are having makes it well worth whatever the time is that teachers spend on it.
'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, we will be in the garden of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we will not be ashamed. To turn 'twill be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right.
I think when learning is fun for kids, it's meaningful for them. So when you draw them in with a hook and you attract them somehow to really be enjoying the experience, you've got something that lasts forever. I think once you have a hands-on experience, it adds a certain dimension to learning that we really can't get in any other way.